What's going on, folks? We jumping right in tonight. No time for any segues, although there are some personal stories that I would like to have shared because some people have gone through some traumatic incidents in the past couple of days. But we're gonna link up and we're gonna get to it at the end. Tonight we got our special guest. First we got our guest host Robert Simmons, who has been on the Eight Black Hands more than anybody else. So you almost like the 10th hand, but you from Detroit. So you got to be like the 12th hand, only because you're from Detroit. And so,
Shady.
we also got a special guest on tonight. We got Rashaun Kemp, who is a candidate for the state legislature down in Georgia. Right? When I hear Georgia and I hear politics, bro, I don't think good things. But hey, we're gonna get it in with Mr. Kemp tonight. Currently, Rashaun is a national nonprofit leader, the Freedom Coalition of Charter Schools, FCCS, serving as their executive director. And so, we definitely want to talk about how that segues into your campaign, your thoughts, and all those other things and whatnot, right? But real quickly, man, tell the people who you are.
Yeah, Rashaun Kemp. I am a candidate for state representative here in Georgia, the 61st House District. This district goes from the southern portion of Fulton County up into Douglas County, which is right next to Fulton County, where Atlanta is the county seat. I'm originally from Ohio, so Simmons, I ain't gonna hold that against you because you're right there next door in Michigan, but from Columbus, Ohio, so I'm a true Buckeye fan, even though I live here in Georgia. I know, man. I'm hoping you don't have no amazing Blues somewhere back there, man. But I am a father too, husband, 18-year-old, and actually we're crazy enough to start all over and have an 8-month-old daughter. So Jaden in Brooklyn. So yeah, that's the brief portion about me.
That's what's up, bro. Thanks for sharing that. I'm just glad you didn't say an 8-month-year-old.
Right. Yeah.
Because people say that
8-month-olds either.
Hey, dude.
An 8-month-year-old.
Right.
I'm just saying, you was free though. He was free. He was free. He was free. He was
right
gone.
Never too late to start over, bro.
He was about to have some disposable income again in his life, and he was like, "Oh, let's just do it all over again."
That ain't no fun. Just...
Yeah,
man. Listen, kids are expensive,
man.
Yeah. Kids are expensive, right? And so regardless if you did 18 years ago or regardless if you're doing it now, it's probably even more expensive because of the type of things that you have to buy now. Like dietary needs are different, right? Like I remember before when we were growing up, like you cow's milk or whatever. Now, like there's like these, you got to go soy, you got to go almond, you got to, it's all kind of things. That's how you gotta raise your kids now. You can't just rough it like Reef.
Bro, when you got a baby in the house, everybody drinking the same milk, bro. You know what I mean? Like that's how we do it. Everybody drinking the same joy.
I don't want to ask no questions. I don't want to
ask
no more questions. No more. Please get into the show, Ray.
What are we saying here?
Because you know.
I ain't agree to that.
No. When we talk about kids on this show, that dude Charles be hiding.
He goes sideways. He go out the
Look, I was about to tell him I'll come down there and stunt for him and give a speech or two, but then he told me he was free and did it all over again. I'm like, I don't know if he makes sound decisions.
Huh? Yo, man, that is the kind of energy that we need tonight. Man. So Reef, you got the first question, man. You kicking it off, unless you didn't read the notes in Slack.
No, but I didn't see the Jones in Slack. But I do have a question that I can start off with. Rashaun, you were a former teacher and a principal, and I think dope educators. We need more of them at tables in policy making, in politics. And so I'm glad to hear that. And I want you to you obviously agree because you're running, but I would like for you to just share what additional insights do you bring to the table as a former educator that most folks are just oblivious to when they get in those seats?
Yeah, man. I mean, one thing that most people don't know when you look at state budgets, the majority of a state budget goes towards education. but also we don't have very many educators in state legislature. So, I think it's really important that we bring that perspective into our legislatures. We have people making decisions in education committees that are in lots of different professions, but when it comes down to it, there aren't very many educators making decisions on those bills that are coming forward. So I think I bring a perspective of, okay, what it is truly like on the ground, working with students, working with teachers, and the struggle that we have in education, from retaining teachers because they're not paid at a salary that they can sustain a family, and it goes even further when we talk about charter schools. But I think it is important to be able to bring that perspective, because a lot of people just don't understand. It's like this kind of like foreign thing, like, yeah, I'm looking at line items or looking at a budget, but what does this really mean to everyday lives? Or now we see what's happening with anti-CRT that's kind of turned into anti-teaching history. What is the real impact of that in classrooms? As a teacher, am I going to now be nervous because I'm going to make some students uncomfortable in teaching them about, the past of this country? So I think it's important that we have that perspective, because a lot of people make decisions on classrooms that's never been in one, or about schools that's, never led one. So I think I bring a unique perspective from that. I became a principal at the age of 27, so I was wet behind the ears when I was leading a school. So I think I, bring a very unique perspective, especially being in an inner city and working with kids that, for so many of them, kind of fall through the cracks.
Now, what they doing hiring a 27-year-old to run a building? What are they doing there? Like, what is?
It had to be a little crazy, right? Yeah.
Well, look,
in hindsight, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
But also want to ask FCCS. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is it? What do you do there? How was it founded? All those kind of things.
Look at you stepping on other people's questions, Reef. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, go ahead. So FCCS, the Freedom Coalition for Charter Schools, man, I am super blessed to be leading an organization that was started by the great Dr. Howard Fuller. It was started in 2019 when he and Dr. Steve Perry out of New York were at a conference, and they were saying, like, man, there's a serious disconnect when it comes to, especially Democrats, but progressives and education when it comes to choice. We have all these Black and brown leaders leading amazing schools, doing amazing work in our communities, but we also have politicians that are actively fighting against their very livelihood. We have people that call themselves progressives wanting to, move this country forward. But when it comes to education, it's hands off. And so what they decided to do was like, look, we need a bold organization that's going to go out and, raise our voices and make sure people know that we're here. And so in 2019, they started, kind of having conversations. And then during the presidential election, they started having rallies outside of the Democratic debates, because at the time, like folks like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were saying, oh, we need to, have a moratorium on charter schools and get rid of them, seeming to not recognize that the very voters that support them are sending their kids to those very schools. So, it's all about being bold and, making sure that folks know that, Black and brown charter schools exist. Also shifting the narrative, for far too long, we're kind of like a side note when it comes to the education reform space, or, in the public charter school space. So making sure that we're uplifting the great work that's happening in our schools and in our communities as it relates to Black and brown charter schools.
That's what's up. Hey, Charles, jump in here, buddy.
Yeah. I think, and one, Ray, I want to shout you out because I think you produced the hell out of this show. My apologies up front if I don't hit every question that you put up there. So just make sure that it gets answered. My question, Sharif kind of asked a little bit of it, but I remember being on them early meetings and calls when that was coming together. And I'm really proud of what y'all have built, man, and that they landed on you. My question for you, now that you are like a newer CEO there and they had a little bit of traction, what do you feel has been your biggest win thus far, just with the charter net, with the new group, and what are you looking to accomplish in this year with that group?
Yeah, very good question. So, biggest win is going from what was an ad hoc group of pretty much Avengers from like all over the country coming together and saying, "Hey, we got a problem. Let's solve it by doing X, Y, and Z." On their own dimes. I mean, they were coming to Atlanta, LA, and the different locations, and it was all on their own dime. But now, coming into this organization, and it's now truly an organization. FCCS is now incorporated in the state of Georgia. That's going from an ad hoc group of people to truly having an organization that is incorporated and working on our nonprofit clearance. But that's the greatest accomplishment. And then we have a strategic plan. With any sound organization, you got to have structure and really know what the goals are, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. And so we did that. So that's, I think, the greatest accomplishment, to really take something that was folks just coming together and really wanting to fight, and then building an organization around that. What we want to do going forward is to continue doing stuff like that, and finding ways that we can support people on the ground. We've now found, like, we've reached out and gotten 6 locations that we want to be in, going from DC all the way to LA. But we also want to be that organization that's nimble enough for somebody to say, like, hey, there is a pastor or a educator in Mississippi that's trying to start a school, but he's catching hell. Like, we need FCCS to come in and raise your voices. And so we want to be that organization. But ultimately, what we want to see happen is to see more Black and brown elected officials supporting our schools, seeing policy environments created in which our schools can be successful, because that, at the end of the day, that's how they're going to grow. So that's what ultimately the goal is, to see the growth of Black and brown led schools.
That's what's up. Simmons, man, jump in here. You've been quiet.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate Brother Fuller, just as an OG in the spot. So I just anytime I've been in Milwaukee, I just love just listening to his stories. When you think about the work that the organization does on the ground, and if you had to kind of tell people in the audience what to look for, like, what's some specific things that y'all are actually doing these days and have done historically, and then, like, what are some specific things that you want to do in Georgia, because that's where you're at, and as it relates to this movement?
Yeah, so I think the most important from an advocacy perspective, because that's what we're focused on. We're just focused on advocacy. That is our niche in the charter school space. It is about building relationships, and also building relationships and partnerships with folks that maybe traditionally aren't, engaged in this work. Because I think ultimately that's how we kind of shift the, public perception, and, we build an army of supporters that are saying, you know what, at the end of the day, like, these schools are being effective with our kids. Why are we fighting them? Calling out elected officials that are, still, towing party lines that are old and, relics of the past, and so ultimately what we're trying to do now is build relationships. And I truly believe that, I mean, we all know from advocacy and what folks typically do with our communities, it's just we come in and say, hey, this is what we want you to do, but we want to be authentic and really say, hey, we want to build relationships, get to know just need you for Republican and get to know the people on the ground, and really build authentic. I know, man, like, dude, and really build authentic relationships with them, and really find out, like, okay, what's the issues in Ohio? We're hearing from people on the ground that they still struggle with transportation and having to rely on districts when it comes to getting their kids to and from school. What's the issue here in Atlanta? It continues to be facilities. And so that's the types of things, to answer your questions, Rob, is what we want to do. We want to see, okay, what's happening in each various location, because it's not always a one-size-fits-all thing. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be about. We're saying we're not a one-size-fits-all approach to education. So we should take that same approach with advocacy. Like, there may be some kind of common things across the country that we can work on, from like the charter school program grant federally, but at the end of the day, what's happening in our communities that we can lean in and support on.
That's what's
Yeah,
up.
that's what's
Hey,
up.
really quick. Folks that are in the audience right now, if you could please like and share our show, that would mean a great deal to us. So please, let's get this thing moving. We got like 100 people in here. We got like 9 likes. So let's get these likes up. Secondly, I want to shout out one of our viewers. I want to shout out Miss Cynthia Rose. And the reason why I want to shout out her is because last week she was hot 97 with regards to the guest that we had on last week. I think she might have even left early. And so thank you for coming back and kicking it with us. Because I wanted to reach out to you this week because I know that you were hot. And so thank you for coming back and kicking it with us, Miss Rose. Thank you. We at 8 Black Hands every week. There's a different producer of the show. We try new things. We see things that work. We see things that don't work. And we're going to always try new things to try to bring in new folks to the conversation. So I wanted to shout out Miss Rose. There's a question in the audience that I think is extremely important for you, sir. Brother Kemp, it says, have the teachers' unions begin to fight against you?
That's a very good question. You probably will after seeing me on the show. No, so far, let me knock on wood, they have not. But at the end of the day, that's also the work that we need to do in this movement. The teachers unions are very good at rallying the troops and supporting candidates that are opposed to parents being able to make a choice to where they send their kids to school. So that's what we hope to change through FCCS, is to build that army, to get our people to see, like, look, you got to show up for people that are running for office, for people that are in office and supporting us, because a lot of times we don't. And that's the first thing I heard when I was lobbying for the Georgia Charter Schools Association is, well, if I stick my neck out, y'all don't show up for me. So we need more people supporting the issues that we care about and making sure people know that. I kind of use that as an opportunity to kind of push some changes that we need to make. But so far, no. But I'm sure it's going to be just a matter of time.
Yeah.
That's
hey,
crazy.
listen, if they after you, then that means that you're a threat. And if you're a threat, then that means that you can win. And so if they're staying quiet, we need to do something to build a noise. Reefus, jump in here, man. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned facility. Everything like with politics is local, and so I was curious about you mentioned facilities. I don't know if that was just like a general thing you were throwing out, but really curious, like for Georgians, like what are some of the key issues that you feel like, this will be a mandate, or this is what I'm hearing from the community. This is something that they're passionate about and they are demanding change for, and this is going to be my mandate. What have you heard so far in your in your due diligence and research and community engagement?
Yeah, by far it is voting rights and it's public safety. But obviously, Georgia's like ground zero for
public safety
comes...
meaning what, like traffic lights? What do you mean?
No, so public safety crime.
You know what I mean? Police. You know what he mean? Come on, now.
Roosevelt Boulevard in Pennsylvania is one of the most dangerous places, and they often talk about that as public safety. So I got you. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead, bro.
This Joker. Let me call him out real quick. I sent him an article today telling him there's 88 murders already in Pennsylvania. He knows exactly.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Kemp, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's
Kemp,
crazy.
thank you for acknowledging that public safety is a broad.
We know it's broad. I got you, Reed.
Thank you.
It's broad, but you know what he meant. You knew what he meant.
I didn't. I'm asking. I don't live in Georgia. I'm asking. Thank you, bro. I appreciate you indulging me.
I'm sure y'all have seen all the craziness that's happening in Georgia as it relates to voting rights. Like I said, at the end of the day, I mean, I can't go to give people this no more. I mean, it's insane that they are just trying to attack it any way they can. I mean, we literally used to do that and can't do that no more. But even scarier than that is that they can go and take out election boards. Like that is like the chess piece that they got in there to say, well, I don't feel like what Fulton County is doing meets our expectations. So we now have a board that can come in and say, hey, you move over, let us run this. That's the most concerning thing. And people, like voters, are aware of that. And so like they want us to fight. Like, at the end of the day, it's very unlikely that we're going to shift the power in our state legislature. But at the end of but what we can do is fight. And if they're going to try to do something, what we can do is make sure they do it with a huge spotlight on their faces when they're trying to do this, or that we're knocking on the governor's doors and when he's trying to sign stuff really quickly to hurry up and get something passed. So voting rights is the, like, I swear, like, to you, like, that's like probably everybody I talk to says that. Then the next thing is, definitely public safety, but also from the perspective of we need to change what we normally do. So whether it's, reducing recidivism with, our in our communities, or whether it's, engaging, police and communities in a different way, or, looking at, programs, how we engage our youth, like from that perspective, and not saying, oh, the only solution is more police. So definitely a change in how our system works.
So...
Hey, I won't put Charles. I'm sorry, real quick. I don't want to put Rashaun on the spot. I'd rather put Sharif on the spot. Reef, how do you feel about the messaging of defund the police?
I don't look at that as being part of the spot. I think they get way too much money, and what they have used with it is reinforce racist policy. So racist policies that police implement in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and everywhere else gets mad funding, right? And so when we talk about like recidivism, when we're talking about like what are things that can reduce crime, can reduce the stress, the desperation that people have in communities that have been underfunded, that have been kicked while they're down, have been doing all of that. A lot of that money, not some, a whole lot of that money needs to be diverted and sent to places like education, like childcare, like workforce development, like green spacing,
social workers,
social work, all of that stuff. That's where that money needs to go. We already know the cost of imprisoning somebody, and they got a whole lot of folks in prison for some dumb stuff. The cost of that, and you compare that to what they spend on education, is absolutely absurd. And
I think I agree with everything you said. I felt like Ray was asking something different, though. And Ray, correct me. I thought Ray was asking more about the messaging, like as a terminology, how that's working.
Defund the police. I ain't
got
no
wait,
problem
let me tell you why I think he asked that. Let me tell you why
I understand what he's saying. I don't mind the phrase.
But let me tell you why I think he asked that. Let me tell you why I think he asked that, especially in Illinois. There's people running on state platforms of the complete opposite of that, attracting black people, because they don't understand what's meant when you say defund the police, right? They thinking that you want to get rid of police instead of diverting funds. So there are black candidates running for state positions in Illinois saying, oh, I'm coming to do the opposite of defund the police. And they're polling well with like black people, right? So I think that's and Ray, correct me. I thought you were asking more about
that's it.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah, and again, I don't have a problem with the fund. If it needs to have an asterisk or explanation, because some people are running on topics like Black Lives Matter. They're running and polling really well with that too. Right. And so racism always, what Malcolm say, racism is like a Cadillac. It's a new version every year. So anything you say opposite of, white is supreme, whiteness is supreme, they're going to run and they're going to do well with it. They're going to poll well with it. And guess what? Black folks, wait a minute. Black folks doing that now.
How you going to disavow? You asked the question.
Black folks doing that now. I disavow. There were some black folks out there who were voting against, who were campaigning against Martin Luther King, who did not approve of Martin Luther King statue. It was black folks.
I agree with you.
Who were showing up and being bodyguards for Malcolm and being the FBI.
For the record, I agree with you.
Y'all mean like
for the record, I agree with you. What I'm saying, what I think, when I heard the question.
But that comes back to the grassroots.
That love black people.
Getting into communities.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Why are you still going? Like nobody's disagreeing with you yet.
That means. That's what. No, I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is that's why politicians have to get into communities and engage folks, and not just try to come up with pretty slogans on Twitter and far away. Get in those damn communities and have conversations door to door, house to house, community to community, and explain this is what this means. Right, but too many people want to manage by Excel, want to manage from afar, and then say, "Oh, look at what's happening. Oh, let's change." No, I'm not trying to hear that.
Hey, Charles, cut his mic.
Yeah.
Hey,
cut my mic.
I agree with him, but I just was like, when he was saying, like, it was like, white people or white people running on this. What I was saying was it's black people that love black people, but when you have as many shootings that you done had in Illinois and Chicago or in Georgia or these other places,
and Philly,
there are people and Philly, there are people that's not as politically astute as a Sharif is or as we are that know exactly what that term means. And there are other politicians that are now, like Jamoke just said in the comments, making it plainer for those people, right? So but anyway, I don't want to get too far.
Hey,
no, that's important.
No.
Just white people. That's why I brought up how some black people show up.
Can you let the man that's
at the end of the day, like Reef is saying, I agree with him. Like at the end of the day, like everything he listed, like the problem is like we try to come up with these hashtags, and then it's honestly turned on us, and like police unions and things are able to say like, oh, they're anti-police. Like, no, like people in our community aren't anti-police. We're anti-bad police. We're anti-police that are, going to pull us over, not to, steal your story, Cole, and say, wait a minute, you smelling good. So, what's the problem here? Well, okay, my bad. Okay, well, don't let me speak for you. I said there are some. Like you said, go ahead.
But Sean,
let me pray. I gotta put Cole. I gotta put Cole on here, man. You gave him the segue.
I know. Yeah,
Cole,
you got it.
Tell him the story, man. The cologne story, man.
Oh, I mean, it's a whole video up, and I'll make sure y'all get it. I was just kind of telling y'all behind the scenes, but real quick, got pulled over coming back from Indy, going into Kentucky. It was supposed to just be a speeding ticket, turned into 30 minutes. They brought the drug dogs out. Had me on the side of the road looking like a criminal. And basically what it was is dude couldn't process what I did for a living and thought that I like sold drugs and said people from my zip code usually sell drugs. And when he smelled my cologne, that's usually how people try to hide that. It was crazy. So just watch the video. I've already processed that. We talked about it on Friday. It's a whole thing. I'll talk about it with y'all offline because I don't want to get, upset about it again. But that's why I was saying what I was saying to Sharif, because I actually agree with everything he was saying. But like my neighbor, who is an elderly black woman who loves black people, but she hears get rid of police. She my neighbor across the street who's elderly that ain't in these streets and reading the stuff we read are hearing that you want to get rid of police. And these people that live 10 miles from Chicago is like, I don't know what you talking about, right? And I think I think it's what you said, Rashaun, is that they want better police. We want to make sure that there's proper funding for things around it, so you don't depend on police to do a crazy amount of stuff. So I wasn't disagreeing with you, Reef. That's what I was trying to get in there, because everybody is not as politically astute as you are around this terminology.
No, I mean, I don't even look at it political. I just look at like lived experience, bro. Like lived experience.
Hey, Reef, what cologne you wear?
I don't know, but I'm gonna wear whatever Cole had on.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna got. That's what I'm gonna wear.
Dolce & Gabbana.
I got them dogs on you. Get them dogs on you so they can.
Listen, it won't be the first. It won't be the first time. And guess what? Like last time it happened, community rally, alhamdulillah, and defended a brother. And you know what? Like the stuff got to stop, man. Like pulling him over and all of that, and with his hand on his gun. Like, I remember leaving my building as a principal getting pulled over. Like, no, it's problematic.
And Reef, and when you listen to the video, Reef, because I know you haven't seen it yet, you'll hear how calm I am, and you'll hear his voice. Like, and I was like, I'm good. Like, even if
we got to be calm. They get trained and a paycheck. They got to be calm.
I calmed him down, but I was more so thinking about my nephew who's 18 years old. I was more so thinking about these young boys, and when I was 19 getting pulled over, and if I went to jail, I didn't have the money or a lawyer or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, who would have got nervous and been jumpy? Like, that man could have shot me. Like,
no, I mean, I think that, and even coming on to the show, I think this is what got me pissed off, because you shared this right before we came on, and I'm just like, yo, like this is absolutely like it pisses me off. And so like I don't want to throw no bail like, oh, good cop bad, because the good cops will watch the bad cop do whatever. So then what does that make them? So I really don't have that much of I want it for the good cops. I want it because I've had too many experiences, and then to hear this shit happen to you. Which just means like this is ongoing, man. This is ongoing. It is okay for them to do this kind of stuff, and so I ain't shooting them no bail for the good ones and the medium ones,
appreciate that, man.
Mediocre ones and the average ones and this, man. Like
I appreciate that. I truly do.
Commercial break time, right? And so what we're seeing now, to give you guys who just joined the show, we're seeing Reef doing a lot more talking this week than he did last week because he didn't really manage his guests. Back to the show.
No, today I'm pissed off. That's the difference. And usually I try to like maintain a equilibrium that just kind of stays in the middle. I don't get too high, I don't get too low. That's how I go through life. But there's some things that are absolutely triggering. And when I hear about police brutality, when I hear about, another person that could have been killed over something stupid, and they probably would get away with it. Nah, that burns my blood. It makes it boil. And yes, like I do get pissed off. And that's when I become more loquacious. Not because it's like poor management of a guest. It's because I'm pissed off hearing that Cole went through that.
So hey, I'm pissed off that he went through that too. So every week before we go on to the show, we're gonna pull up one of these articles about somebody going through that.
I don't need that. I don't need to be maintaining my blood pressure in that kind of way.
So Kemp, police brutality is nationwide. It's definitely apparent in Georgia in terms of like, how folks approach, just black folks. And so what are you looking at in terms of like going into your candidacy to offer that type of protection for black folks that don't really have an allegiance to the police for whatever reasons?
Yeah, one thing I like to see, and actually, surprisingly enough, the lieutenant governor and Democratic state senator are trying to work on something like this now, like to have more grants going to communities and supporting, community police relationship. But at the end of the day, it's about seeing. And one thing I would love to see is more. Never mind. One thing I really want to see at the end of the day is more. When you say community policing, like that's kind of like, okay, what does that really mean? But at the end of the day, I think it's about relationships, and it's about how do they see us. And it's not always, one thing that people try to turn to is like, white versus black. And it's not like I even, had a relationship where, a situation where, a black cop treated me worse than a white cop that was standing right next to him. So, at the end of the day, I think it's about relationships and training and, what is expected. And then also, I think, Cole made this point, like, to have money going towards social workers and things like that. Like, police should not be called for everything. There should be things in which, we have different types of people responding to situations, because a lot of times it's, something, mental health wise or things like that, or, maybe like even, issues that, people are dealing with, outside of crime. And, we have such a criminal mindset in this country, and definitely in the state where, there are private prisons, still to this day, way too many of them, in my opinion, they need to go. But, at the end of the day, we need to shift how we see the relationship that police have with our communities, because it doesn't always need a police because we, call it 911.
Absolutely. Simmons, you're up.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you come from the classroom, and I think that that's important. When you think about some of these other folks that I see folks running, and I'm like, now what qualifies you to, like, I don't get it, right? And then they win, and you're stuck with folks, and you're just like, no wonder nothing gets done. So I'm just curious, as you're out on the campaign trail, how do you talk about the experience that you bring to politics that will help inform you as a legislator and as a person who's working on behalf of the people?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So, I kind of alluded to this. I used to spend pretty much every day during our 40-day legislative session at the Capitol when I was at the Charter School Association, and I led advocacy and legislative affairs. And so you're right. There are people that are elected, and let me choose my words carefully because I don't want to go in and have people hate me. But there are people that you really are surprised at. Okay, you are making decisions on this $30 billion budget. And the lived experience, for one, that's important. I really think that, and I hate the term politician because I'm running. I'm now I guess, considered a politician, but there are so many that don't have the lived experiences to be a voice for, people like me that were raised by my great grandma. There are almost 3 million kids in this country that are raised by their grandparents. And I think that, a lot of people don't have that understanding of, okay, well, who cares? I don't, want to expand Medicaid because, our families are good. But, what about that grandparent that, is taking care of 4 or 5, kids from different generations, and, they need that, expansion in Medicaid, or they need, help when it comes to family paid leave. I think so many people make decisions because they don't have the experiences that, other, people do on a daily basis. And then, at the end of the day, just professionally, I feel like, I have, a best friend that, played basketball. I have, friends that are, understand like fashion. They're like, great with that. But like my thing has always been policy. Like that is just my thing. I nerd out on stuff like that. Still remember to this day, seeing my great grandma read the newspaper literally every single day, and me wanting to, get to know, okay, what's going on, and like she keeping me informed, and us watching the nightly news, and stuff with Peter Jennings and stuff. So, I remember stuff like that. And, I kind of was like, not necessarily groomed for this, but my life has just exposed me to really want to be in this type of work. And I believe that, everybody plays a role, but, I believe that, we can truly make a difference with policy. And, I believe that, that kind of sets me apart from other people that are maybe, elected or thinking about running.
Well, let's stay there. Let's stay there because I don't know if Dr. Simmons is a Democrat, but from the show, I'm the only other progressive Democrat that's in a Black Hands, right? And just for context for you, Rashaun, worked in the party. I was the vice chair of the Black Young Caucus for California for 2 years. Co-founded Black Young Dems San Francisco and Black Young Dems Oakland. Actually, that's how me and Jamoke met. I was supposed to go and help run her campaign. And then we became really, really close after that. It wasn't even on education until later. But the way that they had us running on party line, or the way that we could never bring up Black issues and put those at the forefront, that's kind of what made me pivot so hard to being so strong on agency and self-determination, because I felt like the party wasn't going to have our back in those moments. You're running on something that is not traditionally Democratic. You're running on something where they're going to call you a Dino or a Dino. For those that don't know, it's a Democratic name only, right? So how do you set up for that and try to change things inside that party while making sure people's minds are open to the fact that parents deserve to be able to pick where their kids go to school?
Yep. Yeah, man, that's a really good question. And what
I didn't leave the party, but I left my positions because I was getting stonewalled more by my own people than I was, and it was just disheartening. So,
yeah, that's a really good point. I do think there has been a shift, even in my work, as I alluded to when I was going to the Capitol and speaking with even people in the Democratic Party, like when it comes to, and, Georgia's maybe a little different, Democrats are now more willing to support charter schools. Many of them won't go as far to say, we should, have, vouchers and things like that. But, the kind of ire has kind of drawn down when it comes to chartering. I'm not saying all. And, I think, they can see, when, we have polls. And right. So you have polls that say 70-something% of, Black voters in, swing states across the country, including Georgia, support charter schools. In 2012, we had a charter school amendment in which voters literally had to vote the whole state, whether or not we would have a appeals process for our chartering process here. And so that passed overwhelmingly. And many of the big reason why it passed is because of Black communities. Clayton County being one was I think the highest, proportion in terms of yes vote in the whole state. I mean, that Clayton County is where, the Atlanta airport is. It's right outside of Atlanta. So I think things are shifting. I think that there are still some, especially, and I'm just going to call it out, white progressives have this disconnect. They don't recognize, well, they probably do, but they still kind of don't practice what they preach, they're able to move to communities where the schools are great. That is a form of school choice. They're able to, send their kids to private schools, but then at the end of the day, they will say, nah, I can't, we should not be supporting, charter schools, or we should not be, able to, support like going back to grandparents that wants to send their, grandkids to a school that may be private. So I think things are shifting. And I think at the end of the day, we have to be calling people out. My experiment, this is also an experiment in that, like to see, okay, can I, there are so many things that I, align with the Democratic Party on. And, so that's a challenge in this space, especially, being a Democrat in education choice. I'm sure you understand that, Cole, being progressive, because there are so many things that I totally disagree with,
Right.
people we have to work with to get, these bills and stuff passed. And so I think things are shifting, and, we'll see.
All right.
Yeah. So Reef, you're up. With whatever question you'd like to ask me.
Yeah.
Reef was looking for the mute button. He was trying to unmute. He was.
Yeah. But look, Rashaun, I think one of the questions that I'm thinking about is just like, in education and schools, like what's something that you want to, regardless of the sector, so to speak, right? Like they're all children, they're all supposed to be serving communities at large, as well as the children individually. What is something that you're hoping to bring, particularly in the education space, regardless of what type of school a child attends? One example, like I was really proud of Philadelphia School Board. They passed a resolution to continue to help youth get registered to vote. I think we have like 8,000 18-year-olds on average every year, and only 15% of them are registered to vote. And so in addition to having like a civics course as a 12th grade, course assignment, having like a champion within schools, probably a social studies teacher or something, where they're, or the civics teacher, just like champion is having the forms, the online version, whatever it is. But that's 8,000 people and only 15 are registered. So a school saying like, hey, dude, we're part of helping civic society and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but you're not even having this conversation. So that was something I was proud of. Like every high school will be implementing something like that. Is there something, that you've been thinking about, that you've heard from the community that you feel could like move the needle on something? It ain't gonna move the needle on everything, but what is something in particular that you think schools across the state or in your region or whatever, and it could go beyond your region, obviously, that could make a difference?
Yeah. So from a state policy perspective, I would like to see teachers being paid more. I mean, in Georgia, like an average teacher makes like $47,000 a year. That is insane.
Even the underperforming ones?
In terms of teacher pay?
He got to say, yeah.
Are you saying like in terms of like, are you saying underperforming school or underperforming teacher?
Hey, Rashaun, you can't respond like that on the stump, B.
Yeah, no,
I wouldn't debate on that, bro.
No, because that's you raise a really good point. Like at the end of the day, that is our biggest, issue with teachers unions, is that we need to be able to get rid of teachers that aren't effective in our classrooms. And we shouldn't have this like long, lengthy process to, get rid of a teacher that's not having, academic outcomes or that, are, really moving the needle with our kids. But, I definitely believe that teachers need to be paid more. At the end of the day, and I'm glad you actually asked this question, Reef, because I would like to see more teachers of color in the classroom. And so I truly believe that, even for me, like I graduated with a political science degree because I just felt like as a first person that graduated from college, like, I had to do something big. Like I had to, eventually, go into law or, first I was a pre-med because I had to be a doctor because, we're not taught to, even though we kind of have this like false sense of we respect teachers, but like we're not taught to, want to grow up and be teachers. And I think a big part of it is because of how, what teachers make. And so, I definitely believe that we need to pay teachers more, because I think that will bring in, more Black and brown educators into our schools. I do like that, about, voting and stuff. So that may be something I add, but at the end of the day, I think, teacher pay is a huge issue.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I know I asked you like a follow-up question, but I think the floor should be much higher, and those who are the highest performing should get even more, right? But there should be a floor that even just entering into the profession, it should, some of these salaries is just absolutely ridiculous.
But what would that funding model look like if you started with students instead of teachers, though?
What do you
like
mean?
If the first statement wasn't like, I think teachers should get paid more, but it was, I think we should have better education for our students. Like, you know what I mean? I think even just that mindset, because that turns that conversation into being about adults. Like, I don't want to argue about who should be getting paid more as our kids are continue to be failed and only 8% of them can read in a classroom, right? But if we start in what does it take for us to have like a better system for our students? I feel like pay would come up in there, but it would be, based upon, how well you serving kids. I know it's complicated. Those conversations are always like, they zap me a little bit when we start with like a teacher as opposed to the kid.
And this is the wonky part of me, because I think about like the Georgia's funding formula is the QBE formula, and that's the things that are kind of in that to determine, okay, how much do you get per kid? It's a teaching and experience, and a school can decide, okay, how they want to divvy that up. But if a school is from the state level, if we're saying, okay, teachers are worth this much, that school is going to get more per student, and they can decide how they want to divvy that up. But I even going back to Reef's question about like even the bad teachers, like I think that there are definitely, I've experienced this. There are people that say, well, education is kind of like, well, I didn't get into what I wanted to do for my degree, so let me just go try teaching, and they just jump into it. So I think we need to change that. I think it needs to be more of a revered profession than what it is nowadays.
Hey, Sean, you started talking about the funding.
Hold up. Commercial break. And so April the 6th through the 8th, I think 3 of us will be at the EdLock National Conference in Houston. Shout out EdLock. All right, sir, go ahead.
It was just so random.
Perfect plug.
That's
You need to work on your commercial.
Transitions.
But Sean, you started talking about the funding in Georgia. What can you explain to the audience? Like, what is the actual funding mechanism, the process, and how is it allocated, and all those things in the state of Georgia? Here in DC, charter schools get less money in the per pupil, and all sorts of, they don't have access to transportation and all these other things. So I think that, that's where it is. And Nicole's point, I actually quit the Democratic Party because I didn't feel they addressed the needs, and became a registered independent. So just want to
very close, brother. I'm very close, but I have to keep the dynamic of our group. We fit so well together right now.
Yeah, Robert. Yeah, Robert.
So
so not to get too boring on folks. So in Georgia, we have the QBE formula, which honestly, in my opinion, needs to be updated. It does not focus on equity enough, in my opinion. And so what happens is there are all these different things. They kind of start like from, the base of the formula is, okay, how much does it, cost to educate an elementary kid? And then it adds on, a high school student, and then it adds on the younger you get. They say it costs more the younger you get. And so, very similar to DC schools when it comes to chartering. our charter schools do not get facilities money. So out of their general funds, they have to pay for the school building that they're in. Whereas a traditional school can, levy taxes, and they can use, they can actually have, SPLOST tax levies in which they can say, okay, we want a special tax that's just to rebuild Grady High School, for example. Charter schools can't do that. A district can decide if they want to include them, but 9 times out of 10, they don't include them. I think I can think of one situation in which a charter school has been included in SPLOST funds. And so I mentioned earlier that T&E is one of them. Like they say, okay, well, this is how much, after so many kids, this is how much you get for, teachers. Or they say, once you hit so many kids, you get this amount of money for an assistant principal, or for a social worker, which is highly underpaid, or counselors, which are highly underpaid and typically just have to do, schedules and things like that, versus truly counseling students in a time period in which mental health is so crucial. So that's kind of how it works. They kind of, say, okay, this is kind of what we think it will take to educate a student, and, schools get, that divvied up to them.
Yeah. So I have a question. So you sound well researched, right? And that's amazing. So who are you running up against? I know that in prior, he's ran unopposed, right?
Yeah.
And so what made this be the year to say, you know what, I gotta put a challenge out here. I gotta step up.
Yeah, honestly, one thing, and I've always admit about it, I'm going to bring her up every time I get it. It's my great grandma. She passed away at 99 a few years ago. But it just really showed me, one thing that I think we do a lot, especially in Black communities, is we allow people to continually get reelected, and there is no competition whatsoever. And we then begin to see those seats as that person's seat versus the people's seat. And so, I believe that I have something to offer, and I believe that, one, my lived experience, my professional experience, as I mentioned, being an educator, I think now is the time that we have, I sound very, political in saying that, but I literally mean, like, now is the time that, we need, more educators in the state house, helping to make these decisions. When you have people that are saying, no, parents should be able to look at a book, and, I brought this book over my right shoulder just because, they're trying to ban books because they don't want kids to, learn certain things. We need more educators. And, honestly, my opponent has been in the state legislature for 19 years. Never had an opponent. I think all of our communities deserve a choice when it comes to, if you want to get people out to vote, to Reef's point, what's the point of going to vote if I don't have to make a choice? It's just I'm just voting for one person. So we need to, have more vigorous debates when it comes to what's happening in our communities versus continually to elect the same person. So my opponent's been there for 19 years, voted against the charter school amendment. Had he had his way, the only Black, no, not even Black, the only A-rated school south of I-20 in Georgia would not be in existence. And that's a charter school led by a sister. So, to me, that stuff is like really important. And I don't think a lot of people know, like, the decisions people make and the ramifications they have had they got their way, or sometimes when they get their way.
Yeah. So really quickly, we got a Stacey Abrams question. Touch it if you want.
So, when I was down at the Capitol, and Stacey Abrams was the minority leader. Stacey Abrams will support charter schools if the district approves them. So I think that's really important that people understand, like in Georgia, how the laws work. And, this isn't a knock, to Stacey Abrams. This is kind of like a Democratic issue. Like, we will say that we support charter schools, but only if the district approves them. Well, the issue is it's kind of like asking Burger King sometimes to go to McDonald's and say, hey, can we open up right next to you? Likely Burger King's, they're going to say, like, nah, we really don't want you right there. And so what we've run into now is that our districts aren't approving charter schools. The school I just referenced, that is led by Tori Jackson Hines, it's Resurgence Hall. Definitely encourage people to look it up. She's amazing. She would not be in existence because the district would not approve her charter school. So she had to have an appeals process to go to the state and say, hey, I have an amazing idea for a school that's well researched, that has great people behind it. And that school wouldn't be in existence because the district denied them. And so that's what we need to change with the Democratic Party, is to get them to see that there has to be these appeals processes, or, many of the schools that we see opening would not be open.
Yeah, that's dope. And so, fellas, we're about to roll into final thoughts. Reef, we'll start with you, since you were violent the whole show.
Yeah, I'm doing better now. One, Rashaun, thanks again for coming on. I tagged you on a couple tweets. One about what the school board did with the voting, and then another one you said you were also interested in educator diversity, and so
Yes.
Dr. Constance Lindsay and her colleagues just wrote another this really dope resourceful paper last month. So tagged you on both of those, that you might want to just take a look at and see if it fits what the community is is asking for. But thanks again for being on, man. We whatever we can do to support you, just holler.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cole.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for being on, Rashaun. I know that people have been trying to get us to have a conversation. I'm glad we finally. This probably should have been the first conversation, but definitely down to have those talks, especially with the research that I think that about that we're doing, and it's the new stuff that we're going to do that I think will be really exciting for you. Ray, I just got to do some housekeeping stuff for 8 Black Hands. For the people that listen to the audio, there's been an amazing update. If you listen to it on Spotify, you now get the video. So now you are now getting the video or audio when you listen to 8 Black Hands on Spotify. So that's huge for our audio listeners, because we know that you all are out there. We have not forgotten you, and we will not. Also, everybody in 8 Black Hands got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Ray has a Substack. Ray, when it comes to you, please list that out. He's starting to be more active on there. Y'all know about Sharice Philly, 7th Ward. I'm doing more on YouTube. Chris has Citizen Ed, Bright Beam, a whole bunch of stuff. So I got to make sure that we lift up those things, because Ray, I saw you had something come out, and I was like, man, we don't never talk about these things like in the show, and we probably should, because this is our biggest platform collectively. And just finally, Rashaun, I would just say, man, best of luck to you. The one bit of advice that you didn't ask for, and so throw it away if you don't want it. I would just say, when we talking to our people, I would try to stay away from the language of education reform and speak to the language of love for our kids. Meaning, instead of saying, oh, this is why we need school choice around X, Y, and Z, I think asking a simple question of who should be the arbiters of where your kids go to school. Should it be you, or should it be the government? And I think that when I've asked that same question in both ways in a room full of our people, and I got a totally different answer from the one that I did from the other one. I think that the other side has done such a good job of bastardizing those terms, and we got to start speaking back to the hearts of our folks, man. I know it's tough. I know where you at. I know it's let us know how we can be helpful. And when it get back on you, can you please shout out your website or all that stuff, so people can go support and donate bread and all that, and I'll support you, and I know the hands will in any way that we can.
Okay. Hey, sure. Coming to you. Also, shout out your granny, man. People asking about who this inspiration is for you.
Yeah. My grandma Graham, she lived to be 99 years old, man. Like, love her, to the moon and back, man. Like, she raised not only me and my siblings, but she raised my mom and her siblings. So she raised 2 generations of kids. From Virginia, moved to Ohio. Truly amazing woman. I tell people all the time, like, she loved everybody, but she'd cuss you out too. Like, and so, like, love that about her, man. But really quickly, I will share my website. It's www.rashaunforgeorgia.com. That's for Georgia spelled out. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that. So at the very top, at the end of the day, campaigns win or run on money. So that's how we get our message out. So definitely need your support. I have my Twitter handle right there. My campaign Twitter handle is Rashaun for Georgia on Twitter and Instagram, all that stuff. Please just spread the word. most people know somebody that lives in Atlanta or in the suburbs down here. So please, let people know about the campaign. That's how you can help out.
And you don't have to be from Georgia to donate. And as
That's
Chris
right.
tells
Money
us,
can
shout
come
out
from
to
everywhere.
Chris. Everybody can be a philanthropist, right? So
I don't want to be redundant. What is your grandma's name? Because Jamoke,
I'm sorry, Mary Holloman. My bad. Mary Holloman.
Okay, thank you for that, because she's in these audio streets. Hey Charles, man, I didn't know everything was happening with Spotify like that, man. That's dope.
Yeah, man, it's really dope. It's really dope. Spotify bought the thing that we have, which is Anchor, and now I can just, instead of all that cutting and stuff, I still got to do a little bit of stuff, but I just upload the video and they'll separate the audio and the video. So you watch it in Spotify, you get these beautiful faces, man.
Yeah, that's dope. Hey, Rashaun, man, want to say one more time, we appreciate you for coming through and polying with us, man. It's been a real good experience. We appreciate you whenever you want to come back. And hey, when you get elected, don't forget about us, man.
All right, I won't. I'll be back, man. For sure.
All right.
You guys have been listening to Detroit for coming in today, covering being that added voice.
Hey, shout out to DeBaji. Well. Yeah, let me get the screen. Hold up, man. I gotta shout out my man DeBaji. Shout out Chris Stewart for having the #1 not-for-profit that I want to work for, Brightbeam Inc. Shout that man out for creating an atmosphere of utopia that makes folks want to go there, work hard, and do the things that they need to do for Brightbeam. Yeah. And also shout out the center, right? Because even though the center is a close second, they still get work done over at the center. 1A.
Hey, check this out. Hold on, wait. We're not gonna act like I don't run a whole organization up in this thing.
I was about to put you at 1A, but I know you ain't gonna hire me. So
hey, no, it's all good. Actually, you got a message you're supposed to have sent back to me with some information. And Rashaun and Rashaun have been pushing me and Rashaun together because of some upcoming very exciting research around black schools and a certain type of black school that I will not spill the beans on. I'm going to be really excited to write about and get the FCCS's support on around that stuff. So we got more talking to do. But I'm not taking it personal, Ray. I know you love us, bro.
I'm taking the screen again. Hey, energy converters is 1A. Right, so we got
energy converters and it's Dr. Cole research. It's two different things. I got you, brother. Okay. I'm out here.
So okay, energy converter. All right, so wait. Let me get my list. Brightbeam, then energy converters, then Dr. Cole research, then the center. Hey, we'll check y'all next week. Charles, is your show next week, so we're looking forward to some hype. All right, so we'll see you guys.
Something about agency and self-determination. It's gonna be great.
There it is.